Chapter 900. P.S. Update complete. It's finally 6 chapters. Everyone, please give me some encouragement so that I can keep up the good work. Chuli listened calmly and did not move an inch. He knew that when Tingdao's main purpose was to provoke Gxin so that he would reveal his weakness. When Tingdao's cultivation level was higher than Gxin's, he had a long sword on his waist that was longer and narrower than normal swords. Moreover, he seemed to be a schemer who liked to scheme against others. His martial arts were probably unpredictable and impossible to defend against. He was clearly stronger than Gxin, but he still used Li Rulin to provoke him. Gxin was definitely no match for such a cautious and scheming person. Chu Li's Dantian was injured and his cultivation level was lost, but the omniscient mirror was not damaged. The Buddha, demon, and mirror in the void of his mind were as clear as before. He only needed to cultivate step by step to recover his cultivation level. His divine light body and heavenly demon body were far more powerful than he imagined. Qin Huaichuan needed half a month, but he only needed 3 to 4 days to recover. The omniscient mirror could see everything within 6 miles. He had long noticed when Tingdao's arrival, but did not bother to say anything. He had to get through this eventually. I'm courting death. When Tingdao chuckled, the point is, can you kill me? You're just a loser. I'm here to send you to hell. Humph, Gxin scoffed and slowly pulled out his long sword. Li Rulin took a step forward and stood beside him. Senior Brother G, let's fight together. She knew that Gxin could not defeat Wen Tingdao, so she would not just stand by and watch. Hee. Wen Tingdao guffawed. All right, let this beauty come at me together. I'll get to know her better. With this beauty around, I won't kill you, Gxin. I'll just cripple your martial arts and chop off your limbs. You'll still be able to live. Wen Tingdao, I'll kill you, Gxin said slowly with a determined gaze. He then turned to Li Rulin. Junior Sister Li, I'll do it myself. This is my business. Senior Brother G. Li Rulin frowned. Can you defeat him? I'll only know after I fight. Gxin replied. When Tingdao chuckled, we've fought before, and you ran away. Can you defeat me? Now that your martial arts has improved, let's kill him together. Li Rulin said. When Tingdao laughed, you're so cruel, little beauty. Are you really willing to kill me? Which sect or faction are you from the Fu dynasty? Li Rulin scoffed. You're finally interested in me, little beauty? Wen Tingdao smiled. I'm Wen Tingdao from the Fu dynasty's Sword Moon sect. Have you heard of me? Nope. Li Rulin replied coldly. Wen Tingdao said, the Sword Moon sect is a big sect in the Fu dynasty. How could you not have heard of it, little beauty? How ignorant. But it doesn't matter. After tonight, you will remember this in your heart and never forget it. You with the surname Wen, shut your filthy mouth. Gxin yelled as he could not take it anymore. He dashed forward and thrust his sword forward. The sword gleamed like lightning. Chu had fallen. Chu was a little, and was, and had thought. Chu, and shook. Oh, you're jealous. When Tingdao chuckled, then his expression darkened as the sword at his waist pierced Gxin's abdomen from a peculiar angle. Even though it was launched later, it reached Gxin first. Gxin was filled with rage. Impulsively, he used all of his strength to stab Wen Tingdao to death. However, he had lost all of his strength and could not turn his body to avoid the attack. He could only watch as the long and narrow sword pierced his lower abdomen. Ugh! Gxin glared at Wen Tingdao. His sword had lost its momentum. Senior Brother G. Li Rulin was shocked and angry at the same time. When Tingdao pulled his sword back and dodged the attack. Then, he stabbed at Ji Xian's throat with the intention of ending his life. Ding! Li Rulan's sword arrived in time to block the attack. However, her heart sank. The sword looked light, but it carried a strong force. She was no match for Wen Tingdao. It seemed like he was a top-notch master from Sword Moon Sect. No wonder senior brother Ji was hit. Ding 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 ding. Li Rulan wielded her sword at lightning speed and stood in front of Ji Xian. Ji Xian took out a jade bottle and popped a spirit pill into his mouth. Then he sat on the ground with his legs crossed. His abdomen was stabbed, but he twisted at the critical moment to avoid his dantian. He spat out the spirit pill, which had softened. He stuffed it into the wound and then popped another spirit pill into his mouth. As long as he stopped the bleeding, he would be able to use his sword. Ding 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 ding. Li Rulan tried her best not to retreat. Senior brother Ji was right behind her. She could not retreat. Although when Tingdao looked handsome and weak, his sword aura was unusually violent. He attacked like a thunderstorm, and his long and narrow sword was like a venomous snake coming out of its hole. Every swing of his sword carried a lethal threat. Li Rulan knew something was wrong. Her palms started to feel numb, and her sword became slower. However, when Tingdao was getting more violent, as if he had endless energy to unleash, at the critical moment, she called out, "Junior brother Zhao, come here," Chu Li said. Li Rulan's sword glowed brightly and forced Wen Tingdao away. Then she carried Ji Xian over the bonfire and landed behind Chu Li. Ji Xian was caught off guard. His inner energy was messed up, and he was even more injured. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Li Rulan could not care less. She let go of him and pressed on Chu Li's back. Suddenly, a strong suction force came from Chu Li's back and devoured her inner energy. He, hiding behind an ugly man who doesn't know any martial arts. He could tell that Chu Li had no inner energy and no cultivation level. His martial arts must have been crippled, since Ji Xian was severely injured and Li Rulan was no match for him. When Tingdao felt at ease and a smile appeared on his handsome face. Why struggle in vain? But don't worry, Ji Xian. I'll take good care of the little beauty, and I won't let her suffer. Ji Xian gritted his teeth and said coldly, "When Tingdao, you deserve to die. You're the one who deserves to die." When Tingdao raised his left index finger and shook it, "How dare you come to the Fu dynasty and kill a disciple of the Sword Moon Sect? As a disciple of the Sword Moon Sect, how can I not kill you? Do you deserve to die? That disciple of the Sword Moon Sect has committed all kinds of crimes. He deserves to die." When Tingdao shook his head, "You kill whoever you say deserves to die. It's the same for us too. You deserve to die too." Li Rulan said, "There's no point in talking anymore. When it's not too late for you to leave." Ha! When Tingdao laughed out loud, as if he had heard the funniest joke. He then looked at Li Rulan in surprise. "You and this ugly man want to kill me? What a miracle!" TSS, a crisp sound was heard. Chu Li's hand that was hidden in his sleeve moved, and a blade energy shot out. When Tingdao swung his sword and hit the blade energy. When Tingdao was very far away from the bonfire. When Tingdao had been very careful and his long and narrow sword was unusually fast. All of these factors allowed him to block the blade energy. When Tingdao slid a few steps backward to put some distance between them, he then frowned at Chu Li. Chu Li looked at him calmly. "Are you leaving or not? Who are you?" When Tingdao frowned as he stared at Chu Li, "Zhao De." Chu Li said, "If you don't leave now, don't ever." "Zhao De." When Tingdao scoffed, "I've underestimated you. All right, I'm leaving." He turned around and left right after he said that. Chu Li scoffed. Li Rulin sighed in relief. She wanted to let go of her hand, but realized that it was stuck to Chu Li's back. Junior brother Zhao. Li Rulin looked at him in confusion. Chapter 9:01. Li Rulin frowned. Xin looked at Li Rulin's hand and shook his head. When Tingdao is very cunning, I'm sure he won't give up. Li Rulin asked, Senior brother Ji, how did you offend him? The Sword Moon sect is the top sect in the Fu dynasty. The world was divided into 5, and the Fu dynasty was the most powerful. Among the 5 nations, the Ji dynasty was the weakest, followed by the Zheng dynasty, the Li dynasty, and the Qiu dynasty. The strongest was the Fu dynasty, the center of the world. To them, the other 4 nations were poor and remote. Li Rulin knew that the top sects in the Fu dynasty were not the 4 top sects, but the 8 sects, and the Sword Moon sect was one of them. Xin said, a disciple from the Sword Moon sect came to the Li dynasty and killed a few people. How could the Holy Church of Light not do anything? I was ordered to kill him, just like what happened to you this time. In the end, I offended Wen Tingdao. Their swordsmanship is strange. Li Rulin frowned. Cunning and ferocious were 2 extremes, but they coexisted in the Sword Moon sect's swordsmanship. It made people feel uncomfortable, and they would often be restrained due to this discomfort, which increased the power of the Sword Moon sect's swordsmanship. Xin said, I've been defeated by him before. His swordsmanship is cunning, and he's also cunning. You must be careful. Li Rulin nodded. Junior brother, Zhao, he hasn't left yet? Chu Li raised his voice. If you don't leave now, don't blame me for being rude. He. When Tingdao appeared and shook his head. I didn't expect an ugly person like you to be protecting Xin. Chu Li stared at him coldly. When Tingdao smiled at Li Rulin. Little beauty, it's a pity that we're not fated to be together. Li Rulin's face, which was covered by a white veil, was tense. She glared at him emotionlessly with her charming eyes. When Tingdao shook his head and sighed. What a heartless little beauty. Xin, you're really something. You're relying on the little beauty, and in the end, you even have to rely on the little beauty's junior brother for help. I'm ashamed for you. When Tingdao scoffed, don't waste your breath. With the surname Wen, I won't give you a chance to sow discord. Why don't you let others talk about it? When Tingdao laughed out loud, his seemingly normal words were like daggers stabbing into Xian's You're still far from your junior brother. If I were a woman, I wouldn't be interested in a man like you. In this situation, you look good. He could not protect himself in front of Li Rulin. Xian's expression darkened. He needed Li Rulin's help. And you're not much stronger than me. When Tingdao's words were extremely powerful. Tingdao said, even though he knew that it was if it wasn't for your junior brother, He could
Your
not
life
get
would
rid
have
of
been
it.
in my hands.
Xian
You
sneered.
should really thank
When
your
Ting
junior
Dao,
brother.
don't be too
Apart
full
from
of
the
yourself.
fact
That he's
I'll
not
kill you
as
one
good
day.
looking as you, which was given to him by his
When
parents.
Ting Dao laughed,
He's still
you'll
young
only
and
fall
powerful.
further behind me.
What do you have to
with
compete
such
with
a
him?
beauty by your side?
Chuli frowned.
You won't
be able to focus on your cultivation. A hero's home is the grave of a woman. That's right. Xian scoffed. What's the point of having a glib tongue? You only have one left. Li Rulin felt a strong suction force coming from her palm. Her inner energy was instantly devoured. Then, Chuli raised his hand. TSS, a soft whistle, was heard when Ting Dao wielded his sword in front of him as he retreated into the forest. Laughter could be heard from the forest. I'll spare your life today, for Zhao De's sake. Xian, you can't always stay by Zhao De's side. We'll meet one day. Xian held onto the hilt of his sword so tightly that his veins were bulging. Li shook his head. Xian's heart was wavering. When Li Rulin felt the suction force disappear, she moved her palm away. Senior brother G, he's trying to distract you. Don't fall for it. Xian forced a smile. Of course I know that. He's too evil. Senior brother G, you're quite capable to be able to escape from him. Li Rulin said. His cultivation level is higher than yours, and he's so good at scheming. He's a difficult person to deal with. I'm sure he's a powerful figure in the Sword Moon sect. He's a rising star in the Sword Moon sect. Xian nodded. Li Rulin said that he was not as good as when Ting Dao. Xian shook his head and sighed. He's similar to junior brother Zhao, but he's still weaker than him. Chuli said, it's all thanks to senior sister Li's help. If not, I wouldn't have been able to defeat him on my own. He's a troublesome person indeed. Senior brother G, you must be careful of him. He secretly sighed at Li Rulin's intelligence. By praising Wen Tingdao, it would not highlight Xian's incompetence. It would make others feel that it was not a big deal to be defeated by Wen Tingdao, and that it was rare for him to escape. This way, Xian's uneasiness would be alleviated. A verbal and psychological battle was similar to a knife fight. If one was not careful, one's state of mind would be disturbed. Once one's state of mind was disturbed, the power of one's martial arts would be slightly affected. Sometimes, a slight difference could mean
was just
the
like
difference
the
between
emotional
life
quotient
and death in his past
Such a
life.
battle was
Usually
said,
complemented by
Senior
talent
brother G,
and experience.
we can't
let him ambush us. He's good at hiding his tracks. It's impossible to guard against him. The Sword Moon sect is indeed good at assassination. Xian nodded slowly with a serious expression. They have a secret skill called Moonlight's Mirror. It's unpredictable. Not only is it true, but it's also true for their swordsmanship. He didn't use his best skill against junior sister Li just now. Junior brother Zhao, you suppressed him, and he couldn't use his swordsmanship. He must have been so frustrated. He smiled as he spoke. He was delighted when he thought of Wen Tingdao's frustration. Senior brother G, you should heal your wounds quickly. Stop talking. Li Rulin said gently, my wounds are fine. Xian shook his head. He suddenly frowned as his wounds began to worsen, and he began to feel intense pain. Heal your wounds quickly, Li Rulin said. Xian, stop trying to be brave. He closed his eyes and sat on the ground with his legs crossed to meditate. Chuli closed his eyes and said nothing. Li Rulin looked at Xian and sighed. She knew that Wen Tingdao's words were effective. Although senior brother G did not say anything, he must have heard it. She must keep her distance from junior brother Zhao, and not be as close as she was now. Otherwise, the knot in his heart would grow bigger and affect his state of mind. She turned to look at Chu Li. His ugly face did not look so ugly under the light of the bonfire. Instead, it looked strangely charming. Chapter 902. The night passed peacefully. There were no more assassinations or disturbances. Chu Li meditated for a night and realized that his dantian was recovering faster than he expected. He frowned and gave up on cultivating to let it recover on its own. It was not a good thing to recover too quickly. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture was actually a provocation to the Holy Church of Light's rules. The other disciples were afraid of the crippling of their martial arts and dared not cross the line. They were afraid that it would take years or decades to cultivate again, and they would never be able to catch up to their peers. Therefore, the strict rules were like a long knife hanging above their heads that could fall at any time. Grandmasters like them did not dare to act rashly. However, to those who cultivated the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture, the rules were not that scary. Even if their martial arts were crippled, they would be able to recover in half a month. The price of violating the rules was too small. Chu Li knew that it was not a good thing. Not to mention the disciples' jealousy and hatred. Even the saint would not tolerate someone who could override the rules. She would definitely have more powerful methods. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture was a double-edged sword. It was wonderful, but also harmful. His crippling of his martial arts this time was an opportunity to get out of this predicament. He wanted to let everyone know that it was not that easy to recover from a crippled martial arts. He would not be able to recover as quickly as Qin Huaichuan did in just half a month. Although Qin Huaichuan seemed smart, he could not see through this. The next morning, after they had eaten their rations, they hurried on with their journey. Your divine light, they had arrived at the great light peak under the moonlight. I'm no match for him. Chu Li returned to his house in the spirit medicine nursery. Even if he were to meet him again, while Li Rulin he would not be able to do anything, even though he knew his opponent's the morning air was exceptionally fresh. He could only avoid clashing swords in the spirit and find an opening to attack, where the spiritual energy of the glorious mountains was released. Swordsmanship Chu Li opened the window. It was not something that could be avoided on the cattail if one wanted to continue cultivating. Zhou Huang extended his chubby hand strode in and patted Chu Li's shoulder. Young fella, it's good enough that you're still alive. That's how Chu Li slowly got up. We're talking about. Saluted. They're not afraid of the Holy Church of
what
Light.
Happened?
Chu Huang noticed his strange expression. I guess that's the only way. Are you hurt? Cultivate my martial arts were crippled. Zhou Huang said with a smile. And you have the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture, so it won't take long. Don't tell me it's the torture chamber, the Earth Matrix, and Reincarnation Scripture. The torture chamber that hasn't even had the time to record my merits. Recovered his martial arts dynasty in less than a month and killed a disciple of the Haitsong Mountain. He was just putting on an act to frame me. I was hunted down by the Haitsong Mountain. In the end, it'll take a while for my martial arts to recover. You guys, fortunately, I've only been cultivating for a few months now. It won't take me more than a few months to cultivate again. That's true. You're a genius. Zhou Huang chuckled. But a genius like you has another mission. You have to help me. Chu Li said helplessly. I don't have the time now. I need to recover my martial arts. You're at Great Light Peak. You're not in danger. Zhou Huang said, it doesn't matter when I recover my martial arts. Help me grow more spirit, who grass first. I need it urgently. Chu Li frowned and thought for a while. Refine the fortifying pill. He was now proficient in the 100 herb scripture and the treasured pill scripture. He could name a spirit herb and immediately figure out its properties and functions. Coupled with the current situation, he could guess that he was going to refine the fortifying pill. There's going to be a war. How can we not have the fortifying pill? Zhou Huang said, don't be lazy. Hurry up and cultivate. You might be able to make it in time for the war. It's the best opportunity to make a contribution. You might even be promoted to a patrol after the war. Chu Li could not help but laugh. He knew how far away he was from being a patrol. He had to become a branch leader first, gain experience, and perform well to accumulate merits to become a patrol. It was not something that could be achieved overnight. The spirit whose grass has been planted. Zhou Huang said, "There are 4 spirit medicine nurseries. Young Su will bring you there later. Help me take care of them. Chant scriptures to make them mature faster. They need it urgently." "All right." Chu Li reluctantly agreed. As they spoke, Su Jinya, who was dressed in a green tunic, slowly arrived outside the spirit medicine nurseries. The vicious palm energy from the Tempest Temple was still present, but it was in a different body. It was equivalent to Zhao De dying in his place. His heart was filled with gratitude and shame. Chu Li struggled to sit up straight. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and shook his head. "It's all right." "You." Li Rulin stared at him, not knowing what to say. He had used Li Rulin's inner energy, so Li Rulin knew what had happened. Chu Li smiled. "Senior brother Ji can't die. Otherwise, senior sister, you'll seek death. I'm all alone, so it doesn't matter." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Li Rulin shouted. She was angry and annoyed. Although senior brother Ji could not die, he could not die either. Chu Li turned around and said to Ji Xian, "Senior brother Ji, this palm energy is probably the source of their tracking. Now that you've lost the palm energy, they won't be able to catch up to you. Before they notice anything strange, you should change your appearance and leave this place at night." "What about you, junior brother Zhao?" Ji Xian asked. Chu Li replied, "I'll stay here and stall them." "Junior brother Zhao." Ji Xian sighed. "I'm really ashamed." Chu Li smiled. "Senior brother Ji, you don't have to worry. I can handle this palm energy. Since I need to stall the monks from the Tempest Temple, I won't deal with this palm energy for now. Once you guys leave, I'll destroy it." "Really?" Ji Xian was surprised. Chu Li said confidently, "Don't worry. I'm not stupid enough to die for nothing." Ji Xian pondered for a while and nodded. He believed him. It was true that junior brother Zhao did not have much of a relationship with him. They had only met once before, and yet junior brother Zhao was willing to sacrifice himself to die in his place. Junior brother Zhao would not be so foolish. No one would be so foolish. Hence, junior brother Zhao should have been telling the truth and could deal with this palm energy. Li Rulin stared at him without blinking. She wanted to see if he was telling the truth. Chu Li did not look into her eyes. He smiled and said, "Senior brother Ji, you should channel your energy to heal yourself. Try to recover as much as possible and leave tonight." "Okay." Ji Xian nodded slowly. Chu Li stood up and staggered down the bed. Li Rulin quickly said, "I'll help you get some rest." Chu Li nodded. The two of them left the house. Li Rulin helped him to a waterside pavilion on the lake. Chu Li sat on the bed and let out a long sigh. Li Rulin opened the window of the waterside pavilion and let the cool air in. She took a garden stool and sat opposite Chu Li. She stared at him. "Junior brother, tell me the truth. Can you really handle this palm energy?" "Of course." Chu Li nodded and looked straight at her. "Senior sister, do you think I'll risk my life to save senior brother Ji? I'm not that generous." Li Rulin nodded. "That's good." "Junior brother, thank you." Li Rulin rolled her eyes at him. "You don't believe me?" Chu Li said, "I've never seen such a beauty before. Even if some of them married an ugly man, it was because of his money or power. None of them really liked this man." "You're too extreme." Li Rulin scoffed. "I've seen a lot of them." Chu Li smiled and did not say anything else. Li Rulin looked at his expression. It was obvious that he did not believe him. She became angry again, but she suppressed it and scoffed. How's your body now? I won't die yet. Chu Li said lazily. Although my cultivation level has been broken, I still have the divine light body, Mahavarokana's immobility body, and the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva body, so I'm especially resistant to torture. I'll be fine for the time being. That's good. Li Rulin let out a long sigh of relief. For the next 2 days, Chu Li kept urging her to leave, but Li Rulin had made up her mind not to leave. She stayed by his side and refused to leave no matter what Chu Li said to her. Even though she was so angry that her face turned red, she refused to leave. Fairies' Capital's secret guardians howl in the evening. The setting sun illuminated the main hall of the secret guardians' hall in a rose-red color. Deputy Commander Su Huanda was reading files in the main hall when footsteps were heard. Centurion Chen Donghai of Mei E Courtyard rushed in. Commander Su, I have something to report. Su Huanda remained cold and expressionless. He raised his head and looked at him. What's the matter? A smile appeared on Chen Donghai's handsome face. Big news. There are traces of disciples of the Holy Church of Light. Su Huanda put down the file in his hand and leaned forward. Disciples of the Holy Church of Light. I've received a tip that there's a disciple of the Holy Church of Light hiding in the city. It's very likely. Chen Donghai smiled proudly. Is it reliable? It's said that the Tempest Temple secretly leaked this information. It can't be false. I see. Su Huanda frowned. The disciples of the Holy Church of Light are not easy to deal with. Those who dare to come to Fairies' Capital are even more powerful. How many people do you want to bring? I want to ask the people of Mei Air Courtyard for help, Chen Donghai said. Su Huanda shook his head. No, Chen Donghai said. Commander Su, Centurion Chu is in isolated cultivation. Mei Air Courtyard can't just sit around and do nothing, right? Sit around and do nothing? Su Huanda scoffed. Even if they do nothing for an entire year, they'll still be far more than others. Capable people do more work. It's such a waste for grandmasters to just sit around and do nothing. Chen Donghai said, Our secret guardians hall isn't that extravagant, right? They belong to Chu Li. Don't even think about it. Su Huanda said, Everyone knows what you're thinking. Stop thinking about it. Chen Donghai was dissatisfied. Commander and Commander Su spoil Centurion Chu too much. If you were half as capable as Chu Li, we'd spoil you even more. Su Huanda said impatiently. You don't think about proper business all day long. You're always scheming against each other. What can you achieve? Don't waste time. When are you going to act? I'm going to capture them immediately. Chen Donghai said hurriedly. Can Mei Air Courtyard handle it? Su Huanda said. You can't touch Mei Air Courtyard. You can look for help from other courtyards. Forget it. Chen Donghai shook his head. I can't use them. If he looked for people from other courtyards, the credit would have to be shared with them. He could not take the credit alone. Mei Air Courtyard was different. Without Chu Li, the others had no right to discuss matters and could not compete with him for the credit. Go, capture them. Su Huanda said, I'll wait for your good news. Chen Donghai was full of confidence. Commander Su, just wait and see. He gave a fist salute and strode away. A moment later, 10 top-notch masters from Mei Air Courtyard followed him out of the secret guardians' hall. They did not ride on horses. Instead, they walked like the wind. They did not walk on the main streets, but passed through alleys. They were silent and did not alert anyone. The 4 of them quickly arrived in front of the Feng Mansion, while the other 7 surrounded the Feng Mansion. A master knocked on the door. As soon as the gatekeeper appeared, his acupuncture point was immediately sealed. Then, the 4 of them entered the Feng residence and went straight to the main hall. they saw Feng Qi sitting in an armchair drinking tea and holding a book in his hand. "Who are you?" Feng Qi stroked his beard and frowned at Chen Donghai. Chen Donghai took out a token from his inner pocket. "Secret Guardians Hall." Feng Qi said in a low voice, "Then I'll have to ask my colleagues in the Imperial Court what the Secret Guardian Hall can do. You can't even catch a single disciple of the Holy Church of Light, but you always come to harass the officials. You bully the weak and fear the strong. Everyone knows that the disciples of the Holy Church of Light are hiding in the Imperial residence. You should go and investigate." Chen Donghai's expression was gloomy. He frowned as he looked at the quiet room and scoffed. "Look around. The secret room might not be in the room." "Yes." The two secret guardians agreed and began to search the surroundings. Feng Qi's heart skipped a beat. Chen Donghai looked at him with a faint smile. "Looks like I guessed right. It's really not in the room." Feng Qi sneered. He flicked his sleeve again and turned his back to Chen Donghai. "Found it," the middle-aged secret guardian said in a low voice. Chen Donghai's spirit was lifted. Another elder walked over. The middle-aged secret guardian pointed at a rock and said, "This is the mechanism." As he spoke, he slowly moved the rock. Pop! A crisp sound came from the flower bed not far away. The middle-aged secret guardian stepped into the flower bed and pulled. Suddenly, a wooden plank was pulled up and revealed a hole. Chen Donghai smiled proudly at Feng Qi. "Sir Feng, what else do you have to say now?" "I have nothing to say." Feng Qi said coldly, "Is it a crime for me to build a hiding place?" Good. You're really stubborn. Let's see how long you can be stubborn for." Chen Donghai shook his head proudly and raised his voice. "Guards!" Two middle-aged men floated over. They were both grandmasters. "Follow me in and take a look," Chen Donghai said. "Yes." The two middle-aged men nodded. Chen Donghai was the first to go in. The two middle-aged men followed him. Their bodies were tense, and they were ready to attack at any time to deal with a surprise attack. Chen Donghai walked in front and was the most nervous. He did not sense anyone, but he had to be more vigilant. It might be a master who was stronger than him. He walked down the stairs step by step. After walking for almost 10 meters, he saw a stone room that was 2 buildings high. The stone room was empty, and there was no one in sight. After a careful search, there was indeed no one. Chen Donghai was furious. He hurried outside and stared at Feng Qi. "Sir Feng, good move." Feng Qi frowned at him. "Centurion, could there be more than one secret room?" the blue-robed elder asked. However, Feng Qi was only an insignificant chess piece to the Holy Church of Light. He was only a temporary shelter for the disciples of the Holy Church of Light, so he did not need to be too brilliant. Otherwise, he would arouse suspicion. Mediocrity was the best cover. It was unknown how many pawns the Holy Church of Light had in the Great Ji dynasty. It seemed like his ability to set up pawns was still lacking. Zhua, Feiyang, Gu Litong, the startling Cloud Association, and the Crouching Bull Mountain were not as impressive as the Holy Church of Light. This was also the foundation of a sect that had been passed down for thousands of years. Why would someone come looking for us? Li Rulin frowned and muttered softly, "Could it be that Feng Qi has been exposed?" Chu Li replied, "The Tempest Temple must have tipped them off." He saw F.A. Yuan and F.A. Xiang standing on the roof and watching them quietly. F.A. Yuan's method was very ordinary, but it was effective. If it was someone else, they would have fallen for it. Aren't they incompatible with the imperial court? They can work together, even if they are incompatible. Chu Li, F.A. Yuan, and Lu Yurong were all opponents, but they would still work together and fall out with each other when it was necessary. Li Rulin said, It's good that Feng Qi has not been exposed. He's now suspected by the secret Guardians Hall, so we can't use him anymore, Chu Li said. Li Rulin nodded lightly. Then we won't disturb him anymore. Let him live a peaceful life. He's doing well in Fairy's capital, and I don't think he wants to return to the Great Light Peak. People are fickle. It's inevitable, Chu Li said. I need to start healing and get rid of that palm energy. As he spoke, he closed his eyes and instantly entered the void of his mind. He began to chant the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture in reverse. The red lotuses turned into flames and fell on his body. Suddenly, he felt a burning pain, as if he was being burned at the stake again. This pain was much more satisfying than extorting a confession by torture. If one did not have a strong will, they would not be able to hold on and would easily collapse. In his previous life, tiredness and boredom could stop him from improving his professional level and survival skills. However, it was completely different in this world. Even the pain of being burned at the stake could not defeat him. This was the difference between a mediocre person and an expert. Li Rulin stared at him with her bright eyes. Judging from his tone, he really had a way to get rid of the palm energy. Suddenly, Chu Li's body became extremely hot like a ball of fire. Li Rulin could not help but take 2 steps back and looked at him worriedly. The heat emitted from Chu Li's body became stronger and stronger. The temperature seemed to be able to boil water. However, his clothes were unharmed, and so were the flowers and plants around him. Chapter 9:15. All right, let's go our separate ways. My cultivation level hasn't recovered yet. I don't want to drag you down with me, Chu Li said. Li Rulin glared at him furiously. After hearing what he said, he became the bad guy again. Chu Li waved his hand and said, I'll see you at the Great Light Peak. I'll take my leave first. Wait, Li Rulin scoffed. However, Chu Li did not stop and left immediately. Li Rulin stomped her feet. She was so angry that she gritted her teeth and hurriedly chased after him. Along the way, Li Rulin did not speak to Chu Li at all. Chu Li enjoyed the peace and quiet as he thought about his trip to Fairy's capital. It was said that the secret Guardians Hall had informants everywhere, but it was far from that standard. There were blind spots, but there was no way to make up for these blind spots. Sometimes there was a limit to manpower. Even the cities in his past life could not cover every corner with the help of the Heaven's Eye system. Initially, he did not want to come to the Ji dynasty to avoid being caught in a dilemma. If he encountered someone who wanted to kill him, should he kill or not? However, after thinking about it, Li Rulin came over on her own, and it was inevitable that there would be conflicts and fights with the martial arts world of the great Ji dynasty. If he came over, he would be able to avoid conflicts to the greatest extent. Deep down, he did not have deep feelings for the martial arts world of the great Ji dynasty. The life and death of the people in the martial arts world were their own lives. Other than the High Duke's public house and his friends, he could not be bothered to care about the life and death of others. He was not the savior of the world. He was just an ordinary person who wanted to live an exciting life again. He hated King and harbored hidden enmity towards the emperor. Naturally, he did not have a good impression of the Ji dynasty either. However, due to the existence of the High Duke's public house, they were interdependent. If the Ji dynasty was destroyed, the High Duke's public house would not survive either. That was why he went undercover in the Holy Church of Light. As a spy, his top priority now was to be promoted and reach the top as soon as possible. Only then would he be able to access the truly important information. No matter how powerful he was at the bottom, it would be a waste of his time if there was no important information. As for weakening the Holy Church of Light's power or secretly harming GXIN, he did not care to do such things. If he wanted to destroy the Holy Church of Light, he would have to ascend to the upper echelons, find its fatal weakness, and kill it in one strike. A small fight would only alert the enemy and expose himself. The saint, Sun Mingyue, was not someone who could be easily fooled. Based on his contribution in saving Ji Xian's life, he could probably be promoted by one level and become a branch leader. At this moment, Su Jingya, who was dressed in a green tunic, smiled faintly and curtsied. "Young Su, bring him along and quickly chant scriptures," Zhou Huang said. Shu Li said, "Elder Zhou, I'll apply to participate in the war against the Qiu dynasty this time." "You haven't recovered your martial arts yet. Why are you participating in the war?" Zhou Huang waved his hand. "Just plant spirit herbs and refine pills if you have the time. It's safe and you'll be contributing to the war." "Why not? If you don't participate in the war and focus on planting spirit herbs, I guarantee that you'll become a branch leader after this war." Chu Li shook his head. "No one will be convinced by this kind of contribution. It's better to fight on the battlefield and contribute to the war." "You're really stubborn." Zhou Huang scoffed. "You think you're invincible. Don't get killed in the end, and give others the credit." Su Jingya said, "Yes, junior brother Zhao, listen to Elder Zhou." Chu Li shook his head. "Let's go, senior sister Su." Su Jingya looked at Zhou Huang helplessly and brought Chu Li to the spirit medicine nursery. The next morning, Chu Li and Su Jingya went to the flavorful tower together. They arrived early, so there were not many people in the flavorful tower. They did not see Sun Lihua and the other two, but they saw Qin Huaichuan and Meng Luo. They saw Chu Li. Qin Huaichuan smiled and gave a fist salute. Chu Li scoffed and turned his gaze away, ignoring him. Meng Luo gritted his teeth and scoffed. "Arrogant." Qin Huaichuan shook his head. "He has the right to be arrogant. Forget it. Don't provoke him. This guy is too despicable. I really want to kill him with my sword. Don't spout nonsense." "Of course, I'm only saying it in front of you, senior brother Qin. I'm not stupid. We're not provoking him now. It's fine as long as he doesn't provoke us." Qin Huaichuan shook his head. "I plotted against him. He'll probably bear a grudge and find an opportunity to take revenge. Then we'll fight him. It's not a big deal. He won't dare to kill us anyway." Meng Luo scoffed. Qin Huaichuan shook his head. "If he becomes our immediate superior, he'll have plenty of ways to torment us. Let's not get distracted. Let's cultivate and strive to climb higher than him." "Yes." Meng Luo nodded angrily. At this moment, a gentle and melodious voice rang out. "Where's Xiao Dai?" Chu Li looked up at Li Rulin, who had gracefully entered. Li Rulin was dressed in a white tunic. Her graceful figure outshone the female disciples present. Her charming and delicate face was solemn and calm as she said in a sweet voice, "Xiao Dai has accumulated merits and become a branch leader. Radiance Clan will be promoted to be a branch leader in Gale City." As soon as she finished speaking, she took out an oval white jade token and went to Chu Li before handing it to him. "Give me your original token." Chapter 9:16. Li Rulin took it and glanced at him. "I hope that you'll continue to work hard and make new contributions. The Holy Church will punish those who make mistakes and reward those who make contributions. You've saved the patrol this time and the spirit herb earlier, so you'll be promoted to a branch leader." "Thank you, Saint." Chu Li fist saluted. Li Rulin kept the jade tag and asked, "The Saint asked if you have anything else to say." Chu Li replied, "I'd like to participate in the battle of the Qiu dynasty. I'll report this to the Saint." Li Rulin glared at him with her charming eyes and fluttered away. Chu Li looked at the oval jade tag in his hand. It was smooth and round, and its material was far better than the white jade from before. It was worth a lot. Su Jingya looked at him in admiration. Qin Huaichuan and Meng Luo's expressions darkened. A branch leader was the lowest position in the Great Light Peak, but it was also the most important step. Most Great Light Peak disciples could not take this step and would remain as ordinary disciples for the rest of their lives. Chu Li had become a branch leader in less than a year and left them far behind. With his martial arts and luck, if he participated in the battle of the Qiu dynasty, he would most likely be promoted to a patrol. What branch leader? Sun Lihua and the others asked curiously when they arrived at the flavorful tower and heard the discussions around them. Sun Lihua was very popular, so someone quickly informed her. The three of them were shocked. This was the first branch leader of the Great Light Peak's first peak. He had already embarked on an extraordinary path and was no longer an ordinary disciple. The three of them sat at Chu Li's table and looked at him. Song Donglin laughed. Comparisons are odious. Junior brother Zhao, you've been promoted too quickly. We can't catch up. I can't help it. I'm just lucky. Chu Li smiled proudly, without a hint of modesty. Song Donglin said, My lifelong wish is to become a branch leader. I'll be satisfied if I can become one. However, I know my own abilities. I'm not made for it, so I won't be able to make such a huge contribution. Son, Lihua smiled at him. You don't have to be a branch leader. Once you become one, you won't have much freedom. Song Donglin smiled and nodded. Mo Tsue scoffed. What did you do this time? What did you do? Chu Li replied proudly. I went to the Ji dynasty's fairies' capital and rescued Patrol Ji Xian. Patrol Ji? Mo Tsue frowned. Your martial arts skills are stronger than senior brother Ji's. He's a famous rising star of the younger generation and has the potential to become an altar master. Chu Li scoffed. What's wrong with being an altar leader? I'm going to be a priest in the future. Junior brother Zhao. Su Jingya quickly tugged at his sleeve. Mo Tsue snorted and said, How arrogant of you. Junior brother Zhao, it's better if you don't say this, Sun Lihua said with a smile. Otherwise, you'll attract jealousy. They're not jealous now. Chu Li pursed his lips. Let them be jealous. They don't even dare to say it. How can they become a priest if they don't have the guts? He always remembered to act frivolously, to lower people's guard against him, and also to attract hatred. You. Sun Lihua shook her head and laughed. She could also tell that Chu Li was pretending to be frivolous. He was more confident than anyone else. The moon was in the middle of the sky, its clear radiance sprinkling down. Chu Li suddenly appeared in Tianshu courtyard. Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi were both in the courtyard. Xiao Qi was practicing her swordsmanship, and her sword glinted like water. Xiao Shi was reading a book quietly and elegantly. Both of them wore flawless white tunics, and their faces were as white as jade. Under the bright light, they shone with a crystal-clear luster. When she saw him, Xiao Qi continued to practice her swordsmanship and ignored him. Xiao Shi put down her book and looked at him. Her deep eyes were sparkling, and she seemed to be smiling. Does the Ji dynasty know that the Qiu dynasty is going to war with the Li dynasty? Chu Li fist saluted and sat opposite Xiao Shi. Xiao Shi frowned and nodded. Chu Li smiled and said, Isn't this a good opportunity? Why are you worried, second lady? I heard that they're planning to take advantage of the situation. Xiao Shi shook her head and said, They're not taking this opportunity to intervene. Chu Li frowned and said, Not taking advantage of the situation? The chancellors in the imperial court are discussing that instead of fighting now to reduce the pressure on the Qiu dynasty, it's better to let both sides suffer, and then go to war. Xiao Shi said. Chu Li remained silent. Xiao Shi said, "Do you think they're right?" Chu Li shook his head and said, "Looks like we have a grudge against the Qiu dynasty." Xiao Shi slowly nodded and said, "We do. Befriend the distant and attack the nearby." Chu Li said, "Don't you understand this principle? The key is that the Qiu dynasty is arrogant. They don't respect the Ji dynasty at all and think that the Ji dynasty is useless to them." Xiao Shi shook her head and said, "What's worse is that they took advantage of the fact that we're in a stalemate with the Li dynasty to force us to marry a princess." Chu Li sighed. Xiao Shi said, "The Qiu dynasty thinks that they can destroy the Li dynasty and the Ji dynasty in one fell swoop. Even if we join forces with the Li dynasty, they won't be afraid. Moreover, they know that the Ji dynasty and the Li dynasty have a deep grudge against each other. It's impossible for them to join forces, so they're even more unscrupulous." Chu Li nodded. Xiao Shi said, "The princess who was married was beaten to death by the Qiu dynasty's prince." Chu Li's face darkened. Xiao Shi shook her head and said, "That's why we have a grudge against the Li dynasty and the Qiu dynasty. This princess has always been a virtuous person. She's gentle and pleasant, and she stands aloof from worldly affairs. She doesn't share the same mother as the emperor, but she shares the same mother with Prince Bao. Her name is taboo, and no one ever mentions it." "Then Prince Bao must hate the Qiu dynasty," Chu Li said. Xiao Shi said, "Prince Bao hates the Qiu dynasty more than anything. Unfortunately, the Qiu dynasty is on the other side of the Fu dynasty. No matter how much he hates them, he can't do anything to them. The Qiu dynasty is indeed more powerful than the Li dynasty, let alone us." Xiao Qi said, "The four major sects are also very powerful, and they're not inferior to the Holy Church of Light." Xiao Shi took the teacup from Yang Su and passed it to Chu Li. However, now that the Holy Church of Light has obtained all of the Great Light Scripture, the Qiu dynasty is probably anxious and wants to destroy the Holy Church of Light before they completely prosper. Even if they can't destroy them, they'll still hurt their vitality. "This is a rare opportunity for the Ji dynasty," Chu Li said with a frown. "No one in the Ji dynasty will help the Qiu dynasty. They'll let them fight each other, and they'll only make a move when both sides are injured." Xiao Qi said, "When that time comes, not only can they destroy the Li dynasty, but they can also destroy the Qiu dynasty." Chu Li could not help but laugh. "You're dreaming. There's always a glimmer of hope," Xiao Shi said. "How are you doing at Great Light Peak?" "I've become a branch leader now." Chu Li grinned and said, "I think I'll be able to participate in the war against the Qiu dynasty this time. I want to strive to become a patrol." Xiao Shi said, "After becoming a patrol, you'll become an altar leader. Once you become an altar leader, you'll be able to access confidential information, and only then will you be considered a success. In that case, go ahead and kill to your heart's content. Don't hold back against the Qiu dynasty." Xiao Qi said, "There are good people in the Qiu dynasty too." "It's true that there are good people," Xiao Shi said. "But, younger sister, if these people come to the Ji dynasty, will they treat them as good people?" Sigh. Xiao Qi shook her head and sighed. However, his sword could not pierce through the spirit crane's feathers. It showed how strong the spirit cranes were. Xiao saw her staring and smiled. They're used to it. They've been fighting since they were young. When they first came, the spirit cranes were just born. Chu Li saved a spirit crane and was accepted here. Xiao Qi exclaimed, "Such a fortuitous encounter. It's unprecedented." Xiao Shi said, "We don't come here often. Before we married into the imperial residence, we came here to relax. These 6 months, Chu Li has been busier and busier, so he has no time to come here." He really knows how to waste natural resources. Siochi shook her head. If he can stay here, why go outside? He can just stay here and cultivate in isolation. There's danger here, too. Sioshi said, flying snakes often come and attack. If it wasn't for his powerful martial arts, he would have been killed. That's why he can't cultivate in isolation here. I see. Siochi nodded. After Chu Li and the two cranes finished fooling around, Chu Li took out 2 drawings from his bosom and showed them to the 2 cranes. The 2 spirit cranes chirped and nodded. Then they flapped their wings and soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the night sky as if they had entered the moon. Chu Li flashed and disappeared from the 2 women's sight. He appeared in a forest and plucked more than 10 wind speed grass. There were still a lot left, and they were like wild vegetables. He did not pluck more. 10 wind speed grass was enough to refine a bunch of wind speed pills. After about 10 minutes, 2 chirps were heard from the sky. The 2 spirit cranes landed in front of Chu Li with more than 10 titanium grass in their claws. Chu Li smiled and took them. He patted the spirit cranes' necks to thank them for their help. With these, he could refine a lot of giant spirit pills. It was useless to eat too many of them. He appeared in front of the 2 women in a flash and smiled. Let's go. You came and went in such a hurry. You only stayed for a short while. Sioshi asked. Chu Li said, I have something to do. I'll stay longer next time. Then let's pluck more fruits, Sioshi said. Chu Li nodded and let them pluck the fruits. Then he planted the titanium grass under a tree. He planted more than 10 titanium grass and used the life and death scripture to strengthen their vitality so that they could grow. Chapter 9:18. P.S. Update complete. In the end, both of them took more than 10 fruits each. Chu Li brought them back to the public house, but they did not return to Tianshu Courtyard. They stayed on the Jade Guardian Island. The Jade Guardian Island had always been taken care of in preparation for Xiaoqi's return. Every few days, they would have to dry the bedding, so they would have a place to stay. After they returned, the Jade Guardian Island was suddenly bustling. Xiao Taiying and his wife and Xiao Baiha also heard the news and rushed over to chat with them. They would not be sleeping tonight, so the Jade Guardian Island became very lively. Chu Li did not join in the fun and went straight back to his island. Xue came to welcome him. The moonlight was like water. She was dressed in white, and her hair was loose like black satin. Her body was emitting a cold aura. Her crescent cryptic's level was very high. Master. She came to welcome him with a smile on her cold face. Chu Li said, Have you found the alchemy furnace? I have found it, and the alchemy room is also built. Xue said. Chu Li nodded. Let's go take a look, he said as he passed 5 fruits to Xue. As he walked, he asked, Is there anything big in the public house recently? Xue said, Master Xiao Taiying and Madam had a fight. Madam ran back to her home, and Master Xiao Taiying personally went to welcome her back. He just came back 2 days ago. Chu Li said, It seems like the husband can't control the family. Why did they fight? Master Xiao Taiying killed one of Madam's flowers while he was practicing his fist technique. Xue shook her head. That was Madam's favorite flower. Master Xiao Taiying did it on purpose, right? Yes. Xue nodded lightly. Madam put too much effort into this flower. A while ago, the flower was sick and wasn't energetic. She was very nervous. Fortunately, it was saved. She didn't expect Master Xiao to kill it again. How could Madam not be angry? Chu Li shook his head and smiled. Xue smiled. Master Xiao Taiying is mature and steady. He is like a different person in front of Madam. Both of them quarrel like children. That's good. Love is sweet. Chu Li smiled. Is there anything else? The martial arts sects are very quiet. Shue said. Chuli nodded. The two of them came to a room. It was an alchemy room that Shue Ling had personally built. The 4 windows were wide open, and in the middle of the room was a small alchemy furnace. Beside the furnace were firewood and black stones. Black stones were the highest quality charcoal, and only such charcoal could produce high temperatures. Relying on firewood alone would not be able to reach the required temperature, and it would not be possible to refine the alchemy pills. He looked at the alchemy furnace and felt satisfied. It was obviously not an ordinary item. The High Duke's public house's wealth was enough to get a good alchemy furnace. He immediately began to concoct the pill. He poured some water into the fire and threw in the wind speed grass. Then he added a few more sets of spirit herbs and lit a few pieces of charcoal. Chu Li sat beside the alchemy furnace as if he could not feel the high temperature. Shue waited on the side, serving tea and snacks. She did not mind the high temperature at all. Her crescent cryptic allowed her to keep her body cool. No matter how high the temperature of the outside world was, it could not be changed. In one night, he refined 2 cauldrons of pills, 1 cauldron of wind speed pill, and 1 cauldron of giant spirit pill. There were 12 plants in each batch, and each batch gave 2 to Shue Ling. Consume it immediately when you get back. Chuli said, It's good stuff. Master, what are these for? Shue Ling looked at the 4 pills in her hand in confusion. They were the size of grapes, and Chu Li had just rubbed them. This is the wind speed pill. It increases your speed. This is the giant spirit pill. It increases your strength. Chu Li pointed at them. 2 pills is the limit. It's useless to eat more. Let's see how much your speed and strength can increase. There's such a spirit pill. Shue Ling was surprised. The pills of the Yi public house were already the best. The spirit blessing pill was one of the rare pills in the great Ji dynasty. However, the public house did not have a spirit pill like the wind speed pill or the giant spirit pill. It could directly change one's physique. Those spirit pills were legendary in ancient times. They no longer existed in this world. She did not expect Master to be able to refine them. Chu Li said, Don't make a fuss. Eat them quickly. Yes. Shue Ling nodded. She knew how precious these spirit pills were. If others heard about it, there would be a bloodbath, and the Yi public house would not have peace. Chu Li waved his hand. You've been busy for the whole night. Go back and take the pills. Rest. I'll be leaving. Master, don't you want to rest? Shue Ling was reluctant. Chu Li shook his head. I'm busy over there. When he arrived at the Jade Guardian Island, the sky had not brightened yet. The 2 ladies were sleeping soundly. He woke them up and brought them back to Tianshu Courtyard. He gave them 4 spirit pills each, just like Shue Ling. Then he returned to the spirit medicine nursery. The spirit medicine nursery was quiet and still. The people were still dreaming. Chu Li consumed a wind speed pill and experienced the effects of the pill. After a while, the effects of the pill began to spread and was completely absorbed by his body after being activated by his inner energy. He could feel his body becoming lighter. In a flash, he appeared outside the house. His shadow was faintly discernible. His speed was extremely fast. He could not help but smile. The medicinal effect of this wind speed pill was twice as strong as the one he obtained. The speed increase was not inferior to the previous pill. Chapter 919. Li Rulin asked, Is senior brother Zhou still free? Zhou Jinchun? Son Mingyue muttered, He just came back. All right, I'll let him go with you. Thank you, Saint. Li Ruolin gave a fist salute. Sun Mingyue called for someone outside, and a disciple quickly went to inform Zhou Jinchun. Sun Mingyue looked at her and shook her head. I thought you'd let Xiao Dai go. Li Ruolin shook her head. Logically speaking, Xiao Dai is more suitable. He's much more powerful than Zhou Jinchun and has a better rapport with you. Why don't you let him go? Sun Mingyue looked at her curiously with a faint smile. His martial arts is powerful, but we fought. Li Ruolin shook her head. It's awkward to stay together, especially when senior brother Ji is there. It's awkward when two love rivals are together. Sun Mingyue chuckled. Xiao Dai is more broad-minded than I thought, and likes you more than I thought. Li Ruolin gritted her teeth and scoffed. He's changed now. He's more overbearing and difficult to get along with. His attitude towards me isn't as good as before. It's infuriating. He's jealous. Sun Mingyue said, but he didn't take the opportunity to harm Gxin. He's very useful. Li Ruolin sighed and nodded slowly. Although he was extremely angry with Chu Li and wanted to slap him, he was still grateful deep down. After all, he had risked his life to save senior brother Ji. If it was someone else, he would have pretended to be helpless and stood by the side. He would not have suspected anything and could only watch as senior brother Ji fell into the hands of the Tempest Temple. Sun Mingyue said, although Xiao Dai looks like a boorish person, he's actually very daring and meticulous. Moreover, he's also quite resourceful. He's much better at handling matters than you and Gxin, yet you insist on choosing Zhou Jinchun. Don't regret this in the future. I won't regret it. Li Ruolin gritted her teeth. She was furious at the thought of him and wanted to scold him. She did not want to see his ugly face. Sun Mingyue shook her head. A burly man came in and fist saluted. Greetings, Saint. Zhou Jinchun, you'll have to go down the mountain again. Sun Mingyue's face darkened, and her eyes turned cold. Follow Li Ruolin and Gxin to Falling Autumn City. Yes, Zhou Jinchun answered loudly. You're here to deliver pills to Falling Autumn City. Sun Mingyue said, you know how dangerous it will be once the news gets out, so the three of you must move stealthily. Try not to walk on the main road, and don't ride a horse. Use your lightness skill, and you should be able to arrive in 4 days and 4 nights. No problem, Zhou Jinchun said. Rest assured, Saint, I will definitely complete the mission. Sun Mingyue said, when the three of you work together, you have to succeed no matter what. Failure is not an option. Otherwise, the consequences will be huge, and it might even affect the situation between the Li dynasty and the Qiu dynasty. You understand? Yes. Zhou Jinchun and Li Ruolin gave a fist salute at the same time. Go. Sun Mingyue waved her hand. The two left the light palace. Seeing them leave, Sun Mingyue raised her voice and said, Guards. A green-clothed girl gracefully walked in. Summon Xiao Dai here, Sun Mingyue said. Yes, the green-robed girl replied in a crisp voice and left gracefully. The night was hazy. Li Ruolin was dressed in a green robe, and her face was covered with a white veil. Gxin and Zhou Jinchun were also dressed in green robes. They quietly left the Great Light Peak and sneaked into a forest to prevent anyone from following them. After running for the entire night, they stopped in front of a forest the next morning. Li Ruolin swung her sword and easily cut down a few trees, creating an empty space. Then, they sat on a tree stump to rest. Junior Sister Li, your sword is so sharp. Zhou Jinchun smiled and said, Can I borrow it for a look? Li Ruolin casually tossed the longsword to him. Zhou Jinchun carefully caught it and studied it. The more he looked at it, the more he was amazed. This is a real god weapon. It's amazing. Ji Xian looked at her in shock. He did not know that Li Rulin had a real god weapon. Zhou Jinchun said, I don't think there are many in the Great Light Peak. We only have a limited number of them. Yu Ying doesn't have this sword. Li Rulin nodded. This is the sword that we snatched from Haizong Mountain. Haizong Mountain. No wonder. Zhou Jinchun came to a realization. Ji Xian nodded and understood. Zhou Jinchun played with the sword for a while and reluctantly handed it back to Li Rulin. Such a god weapon is really amazing. It's a marvelous work of art, a god weapon made in heaven. Li Rulin smiled faintly. She felt that the sword was extremely sharp and easy to use. It was indeed worthy of being called a god weapon, as it had improved her ability. Zhou Jinchun said, those who can use a god weapon like this are definitely not ordinary disciples from Haizong Mountain. They must be top-notch masters. You're really capable to snatch the sword from them. I'm impressed. Li Rulin said, it's just a coincidence. Zhou Jinchun shook his head. There's no such thing as a coincidence in a fight between masters. Junior sister Li, you're not inferior to men. You've outshone us. Li Rulin said, Senior brother Zhou, you flatter me. Zhou Jinchun smiled. Junior brother Ji, both of us can't compare to junior sister Li. Junior sister Li will definitely become an altar leader in the future. I'm afraid we won't stand a chance. Ji Xian said, this battle is a good opportunity. If we make a few contributions, we might be promoted to an altar leader. Li Rulin suddenly frowned. That's true. And pondered. Zhou Jinchun smiled. Ji Xian quickly asked, how can a man like us be willing to lose to junior sister Li? I think someone's here. Li Rulin said. Zhou Jinchun and Ji Xian's expressions changed. Li Rulin said, I wonder if they're here for us. Let's descend the peak quietly. Besides, no one else will know about this, so the news won't be leaked. Ji Xian frowned. Zhou Jinchun said, I haven't told anyone. Ji Xian and Li Rulin shook their heads. Zhou Jinchun smiled. Maybe we've been nervous for nothing. They're not here for us. They're here for us. Li Rulin frowned. Let's go. As soon as she finished speaking, 6 figures glided toward them like 6 gusts of wind and surrounded them. She did not expect these 6 people to be so skilled in light body techniques. Their speed was beyond her imagination. Who are you? Zhou Jinchun shouted. Ask them clearly before you attack. Don't make a mistake. He looked at the 6 people. They were all middle-aged men, and the leader was thin and short. Disciples of the Holy Church of Light, the short and thin man's voice was hoarse as he looked at the 3 of them in disdain. Although he was shorter than them, he looked down on them. Their cultivation levels are nothing. Who are you? Zhou Jinchun scoffed. How arrogant! We're from Royal Blade Palace. The short and thin man scoffed arrogantly and puffed his chest out. Zhou Jinchun looked at the blades on their waists and nodded slowly. So, you're disciples of Royal Blade Palace. How dare you come to the Li dynasty? Royal Blade Palace was one of the 4 major sects of the Qiu dynasty, and their blade techniques were exquisite. We're here to teach the Holy Church of Light a lesson. The short and thin man said proudly, we've been waiting at the foot of the Great Light Peak for a long time before we finally met you. The Great Light Peak has disappointed us. You call yourself the #1 sect in the Li dynasty, but you're only a small fry. As soon as he finished speaking, he drew his blade. The blade gleamed brightly. Stop talking nonsense. Let's fight. Whoosh! The blade gleamed brightly and turned into a ball of silver light that shrouded Zhou Jinchun. Chapter 9:20. By the time Li Rulin made her move, her back was already against Ji Xian's. Then, she moved closer to Zhou Jinchun. However, Zhou Jinchun was forced to retreat by the saber light, getting further and further away from the two. He knew that he should go in the opposite direction, but the momentum of the saber was so strong that he could not control himself. Li Ruolin brandished her sword at lightning speed. She raised her voice and said, "Senior Brother Ji, you go first." "All right." Ji Xian raised his voice. All of a sudden, Li Ruolin's sword light surged and overwhelmed the four people in front of her. Ji Xian ignored his opponents and charged toward Zhou Jinchun. Clink, 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 clink. Amidst a series of clashing sounds, he and Zhou Jinchun met up, their backs against each other as they fought. Li Ruolin immediately fell into a disadvantageous position as she fought against four enemies. She wielded her sword very quickly, so she was able to deal with it for a while without being overwhelmed. Even though Zhou Jinchun and Ji Xian were fighting against two enemies at the same time, they were still struggling. The thin and short middle-aged man was truly too powerful. The gleam of his blade was so cold that it felt like it could freeze people. Li Ruolin was barely holding on while Zhou Jinchun and Ji Xian were struggling to join her. "Humph," the thin and short middle-aged man sneered. He suddenly turned around and dashed toward Li Ruolin. He joined forces with the other four to attack Li Ruolin. When Zhou Jinchun and Ji Xian saw that the situation was not good, they wanted to help Li Ruolin, but they were being held back by their opponents. Their opponent was a tall and skinny middle-aged man. They couldn't tell how powerful he was, and he looked dull under the dazzling blade light of the short and skinny middle-aged man. At this moment, as soon as the skinny and short middle-aged man left, he suddenly unleashed his power. The saber light surged and surrounded the two of them. For a moment, they were actually blocked from moving forward. "Junior Sister Li," Ji Xian shouted anxiously. He watched helplessly as Li Ruolin quickly fell into a desperate situation. The more anxious he became, the more chaotic he became. His sword technique was violent, but it was no longer precise and ruthless. The opponent had an easier time dealing with them. His long saber was as cunning and agile as a sword. He trapped the two of them tightly and prevented them from supporting Li Ruolin. The thin and short middle-aged man's swordsmanship was superb. After he joined the fray, Li Ruolin did not stand a chance anymore. After 3 moves, she was stabbed in her right shoulder, and fresh blood stained her shoulder and shirt. Instantly, her right sword became limp and powerless, and she could no longer resist. "Junior Sister Li," Ji Xian yelled at the top of his lungs. He watched helplessly as the long saber slashed toward Li Ruolin's snow-white, slender, swan-like neck. In the next moment, her head was about to be chopped off. Ding! An electric light flashed, and the short, middle-aged man's long saber flew out of his hand. Chi! Another bolt of lightning shot into the chest of the skinny middle-aged man, and he flew up like a long knife. Chi, 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 chi. Whistling sounds could be heard as the other 4 people who were surrounding Li Ruolin flew up and landed more than 10 meters away. Bang, 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 bang. The 5 of them fell together, clutching their chests and rolling on the ground. "Junior Brother Zhao," Ji Xian yelled. "Chi!" A whistling sound rang out again. Ding! The tall and skinny middle-aged man who was fighting with Zhou Jinchun brandished his blade and cut the invisible yet material Chi blade. Suddenly, the long blade shook lightly. Even though he was prepared, he still couldn't block the surging power coming from the blade. Chi! With a whistling sound, the lanky middle-aged man was sent flying with blood spurting from his chest. "Junior Brother Zhao," Ji Xian raised his voice. Chu Li floated down from a tree and landed in front of the 3 of them. "It's really you, Junior Brother Zhao." Xin sighed in relief and returned a fist salute. He then looked at Li Ruolin. Junior Sister Li, are you okay? Li Ruolin shook her head. I'm fine, it's just a flesh wound. I'll bandage it for you, Xin said. You're a girl, so it's best if you don't get hurt. He went forward to bandage Li Ruolin's wound. Li Ruolin took a step back. There's no need for that, Senior Brother G. I'm really fine. It's just a small wound, and I'll be fine after applying some medicine. All right. Xin saw that she was determined, so he withdrew his hand helplessly. Zhou Jinchun returned a fist salute and chuckled. Junior Brother Zhao, you're the famous Junior Brother Zhao De, right? He had guessed Chu Li's identity when he saw the exquisite and terrifying light blade in the Great Light Peak, apart from the saint. Only the famous Zhao De could cultivate the light blade to such a level. He had entered the Great Light Peak a few months ago and had cultivated the light blade to the 8th or even the 9th level. Although he was only at the first peak, he was already a legend. Chu Li returned a fist salute. I'm Zhao De. I'm Zhou Jinchun. Junior Brother Zhao's light blade truly lives up to its name. I'm late. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. He glanced at Li Ruolin, who was lowering her head to apply medicine on her wound. She ignored him. You're not late, Zhou Jinchun quickly said. You're just in time. I didn't expect Royal Blade Palace to be so bold as to approach the Great Light Peak. They really don't know how to write the word death. Now, they know how powerful we are. Chapter 9:21. What did Junior Brother Zhao do? Xin asked. Why are you so angry, Junior Sister Li? Nothing. Li Ruolin shook her head. Did he take advantage of you? Xion's expression changed. Li Ruolin rolled her eyes at him. Zhou Jinchun chuckled. No, Junior Brother Zhao isn't that kind of person. Xion said. You can't judge a book by its cover. Senior Brother Zhou, how do you know that he isn't that kind of person? Junior Sister Li is so beautiful that any man would be attracted to her, especially Junior Brother Zhao. He must like her too. Ha ha! Zhou Jinchun laughed heartily. Junior Brother G, you only have Junior Sister Li in your eyes. It seems that no woman in the world is more beautiful than Junior Sister Li. In fact, although Junior Sister Li is beautiful, not every man likes her. Don't you like her, Senior Brother Zhou? Xion frowned. Zhou Jinchun shook his head. I like Junior Sister Lu more. You... Xion scoffed. What's so good about Junior Sister Lu? She's so hot-tempered. That's why she's so likable. She's not pretentious and pure. Zhou Jinchun said. Li Ruolin gave him a sidelong glance. Zhou Jinchun immediately waved his hand and smiled. I'm sorry, Junior Sister Li. I didn't mean to offend you. Of course, no man would hate someone like Junior Sister Li, but it's not like what Junior Brother G said. Every man likes her. Anyway, I think Junior Brother Zhao likes Junior Sister Li. Xion said. Fortunately, Junior Brother Zhao knows his place. Li Ruolin's words were harsh to her ears. After all, Junior Brother Zhao had risked his life to save Senior Brother G more than once. However, Senior Brother G had said that about Junior Brother Zhao. This was not how a person should treat their savior. Zhou Jinchun said, if Junior Brother Zhao likes Junior Sister Li, you have to be careful, Junior Brother G. Why should I be careful? Xion laughed. Senior Brother Zhou, do you think that any woman would like Junior Brother Zhao? There's nothing bad about Junior Brother Zhao. Aside from his looks, his martial arts are profound, and his future is limitless. In the future, he'll definitely be far above us. He might even become an altar leader or even a Dharma king. For a woman, he should be very safe. Zhou Jinchun said, "Isn't that right, junior sister Li?" Li Rulin replied snappily, "No, no woman will like him." He. Zhou Jinchun shook his head and laughed. Ji Xian smiled as well. Li Rulin scoffed. "He's ugly and bad-tempered. Which woman can stand him? Let's go. Let's not talk about him anymore. It's more important to hurry." Yes, yes, let's hurry. The three of them moved quickly. In the 2 days and 2 nights of traveling at full speed, they only rested for 2 hours every day, and they rested intermittently for a total of 2 hours. Most of the time, they used their qinggong to travel quickly. They were all grandmasters. One of their blades was aimed at Zhou Jinchun, while the other was aimed at Ji Xian. They ignored Li Rulin. Li Rulin had a silk handkerchief tied around her shoulder. It was obvious that she was injured, since she could not unsheath her sword. It was obvious that she was powerless to fight. They wanted to put her aside for now, so that they could get rid of the 2 men. Ding, 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 ding. The sound of swords clashing broke the silence and startled the birds in the forest. The tired birds flapped their wings and flew away. They disappeared in the blink of an eye, and the crisp sound of metal clashing echoed in the forest. Li Rulin turned around and left. The 2 elders ignored her and continued to attack. Zhou Jinchun and Ji Xian were at a disadvantage after just 1 attack. They were like small trees in a storm that could be broken at any time, but they stubbornly held on. Ji Xian shouted, "Junior sister Li, leave quickly. We'll stop them." Zhou Jinchun sighed. He should not have shouted that. The elder who was attacking Ji Xian suddenly withdrew his blade and chased after Li Rulin. Li Rulin's light body technique was not as good as the elder's. A bright gleam of a blade chased after Li Rulin's back. Li Rulin seemed to have eyes on her back as she fluttered and dodged the blade. The blade gleam suddenly disappeared as it turned into a slash and slashed toward Li Rulin at an even faster speed. The blade technique of the Royal Blade Palace was unique. Not only did the blade not lose its power when it changed directions, but it also became twice as powerful. Li Rulin suddenly sped up and managed to dodge the blade. The blade gleam changed directions again and slashed toward Li Rulin at an even faster speed. It had already caught up to Li Rulin and was about to slash her in half. Li Rulin fluttered and dodged the slash again. The downward slash suddenly turned into a horizontal slash at an even faster speed. Li Rulin felt that she had reached her limit and could no longer dodge the attack. She could only draw her sword with her left hand. The power of each slash was getting stronger and stronger like a rolling snowball. Dodging was the worst way to deal with it. She should have drawn her sword a long time ago. Unfortunately, her right hand was injured, and she could only use half of her sword technique's power. Ding! A cold light flashed and collided with the long blade. Chapter 9:22. However, no one appeared in the forest. Only the sound of metal clashing could be heard from afar. The other elder was fighting against 2 of them at once. They could not escape and could not save Li Rulin. They were so anxious that they could not care less about the long blade and rush over to save her even if they were stabbed. When they saw the sudden appearance of the flying blades, they sighed in relief and calmed down. Ji Xian shouted, "Don't worry, junior sister Li. We can handle it." Li Rulin stopped and turned to look at him. She guessed that Ji Xian's shout earlier was directed at Zhao Dai to force him to attack. She sighed to herself. No matter how much they quarreled, junior brother Zhao would never allow himself to be in danger. Senior brother Ji used this to force junior brother Zhao to make a move. However, junior brother Zhao was very smart. He could not bear to let a grain of sand fall into his eyes. Zhou Jinchun shouted, "Junior brother Zhao." TSK, TSK. Two whistles were heard as Chu Li attacked again. Ding, ding. The two elders' long blades were swung. Seeing that the situation was not good, the two elders turned around and left. With Chu Li's current cultivation level, it was not difficult to kill them. Although they were stronger than the White Tiger Sex elders, they could not block his flying blades. However, he was pretending that he had not recovered his cultivation level. His flying blades were not that powerful and would expose themselves if he killed them. Chu Li landed in front of Li Rulin and gave her a fist salute. Xin smiled. Junior brother Zhao is right beside us. Chu Li looked at him. You're too slow. He knew what Xin was thinking, but he did not mind. Women who fell in love were usually blinded. If they could see clearly, they would calm down and not like each other so much. Xin had a good appearance, but no matter how good it would slowly lose its luster if it was not beautiful inside. Zhou Jinchun smiled. Junior brother, Zhao, why don't you come with us? With your light blade, who would dare to come looking for death? Yes, yes. Xin smiled. Let's go together. Chu Li looked at Li Rulin. Senior sister Li, it's up to you. Li Rulin had an unapproachable expression on her face. Chu Li nodded. Since senior sister Li has no objections, I'll listen to senior brother Ji and senior brother Zhou. As the four of them hurried on with their journey, Zhou Jinchun was very enthusiastic towards Chu Li. He told Chu Li about the strange happenings of the Holy Church of Light, and Chu Li listened with great interest. Initially, Xin was not interested in talking to Li Rulin. However, Li Rulin was very cold to him. Hence, he did not want to be snubbed and joined in the conversation between Chu Li and Zhou Jinchun. Li Rulin did not say a word. Her face was covered by a white veil, so her expression could not be seen. With Chu Li around, they were able to relax and were not in a hurry to continue their journey. After resting for a night, they slowly continued their journey the next day. At noon, they arrived at the peak of a mountain. They sat on a boulder and looked down at the boundless forest. The blue sky and white clouds in the distance made them feel relaxed. With an expert like junior brother Zhao by my side, it does give me a sense of security. Zhou Jinchun shook his head and praised, there's no need to be afraid anymore. Chu Li said, Brother Zhou, I'm not invincible. Your light blade is invincible, Zhou Jinchun praised. How many people can withstand it? I heard that a few elders of the White Tiger sect have been killed by you. You should be able to dominate the world. Chu Li said, my cultivation level hasn't recovered yet. There's no rush, Zhou Jinchun said. You're strong enough now. Chu Li said, I'm just worried that we'll encounter people from the Haitsong Mountain. His expression turned serious. Those people from the Haitsong Mountain are scary, Zhou Jinchun said. I heard that their sword techniques are unbelievably powerful. You must be careful. Chu Li glanced at the mountainside. A few figures emerged from the forest. They stepped on the treetops as if they were walking on flat ground and sprinted toward them. In the blink of an eye, the 6 figures appeared in front of Chu Li and the others. They immediately drew their swords and stabbed at them. Their swords flashed like lightning, and the tips of their swords were right in front of them. Disciples of the Haitsong Mountain, don't fight them head-on. Li Rulin shouted and swung her sword with her left hand. TSS, 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 TSS. Chu Li kept swinging his sword. Ding, 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 ding. The sound of swords clashing was heard. Chu Li's energy blade hit their swords one after another, and the swords were instantly sent flying. They drew their swords with their left hands and rushed toward Chu Li together. 2 of them swung their swords as if they were shields, while the other 4 followed closely behind. Chu Li was surprised. He did not expect the Haitsong Mountain to have such a trick. They had two swords in their left and right hands. Unfortunately, they only had two swords. It was not enough. He sneered and shot out energy blades one after another. He purposely weakened the power so that they could get closer and closer. He used the omniscient mirror to observe their thoughts. As they got closer, the four people behind him wanted to rush out. They were waiting for the best distance to kill them. Li was waiting for them to get close enough. He fiercely shot out two flying daggers before they could attack. Ding! The two swords swung and flew away. Li kept swinging his hand, and the energy blades shot into the chests of the other two. The two of them flew up and revealed the four people behind them. The four of them were attacked at a crucial moment. They were caught off guard and faced the flying blades. They were only 4 steps away from Li and could not avoid it. They were sent flying. They spat blood in the air. Li raised his eyebrows and said in surprise, "The Haitsong Mountain is rich." The 6 of them were wearing treasured armor that was impenetrable and blocked his flying blades. The 6 of them used the power of the flying blades and spat blood in the air before turning around and rushing out. Li did not attack again. He watched them leave. Li Rulin frowned. "The Haitsong Mountain again." Li said, "Senior Sister Li, they left so easily. There must be another wave that's their trump card. They must be the masters from the Reincarnation Temple." Li Rulin frowned. She was obviously wary of the masters from the Reincarnation Temple. Xin and Zhou Jinchun looked grim. Li Rulin said, "Let's leave quickly and try to avoid the Reincarnation Temple." Li nodded. He was curious about the monks from the Reincarnation Temple, but he knew that they must be dangerous. Now was not the time to see them, but there would be opportunities in the future. Namo Amitabha, a mighty Buddha's name was heard. A monk in a loose red frock drifted over like a leaf in the wind. His red frock fluttered like a flag. The Buddha's name was like a bronze bell that resounded between heaven and earth. He landed silently in front of the 4 of them and bowed with pressed palms. "I'm Jishan. Greetings, almsgivers." Li frowned at him. There was a huge Buddha shadow behind Monk Jishan's head. It was faintly discernible and seemed to be chanting the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture. A strange aura floated around him. He knew that others could not see this Buddha's shadow. This was the result of cultivating the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture to a certain level. The strange aura was the inner energy transformed by the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture. It was pure and exquisite and was far from what he could compare to. You're tuning into the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.